Shabbat Shalom. And we are in the midst of Sukkot, our holiday where we dwell in booths and shake the lulav and etrog. And so there's a greeting we say to one another when it's not the holiday at the beginning. And the person who initiates the greeting would say, Moadim l'simcha, which means times of joy. And then the person responding would say, Chagim uzmanim lissason, which means festivals and times of happiness. So I'll give you each word at a time, and then we'll try it as the phrase. So Chagim, uzmanim, lissason. Chagim uzmanim lissason. Now, if it were me, I would need to see it written, so I'm sorry I don't have it in writing. But let's try it. Moadim l'simcha, chagim uzmanim lissason. And Shabbat Shalom. And so delighted that you are here on this Shabbat Chol HaMoed Sukkot, this Sabbath during the week of Sukkot. It's also our second Friday of the month. And so we call this, we're having a pilot of this second Friday being our prayer study Shabbat, where rather than giving one Devar Torah during the service or a sermon, I will be weaving in here and there a few explanations of the prayers we're praying. And so we turn now to our opening song on page 664, toward the bottom of the page. In honor of Sukkot, we say, Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, which comes from the Hashkivenu prayer, which we will take a closer look at later on.
Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Yalalai. Yalai, 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 lalai. Yalai, yalai, lalai. Yalai, lalai, yalai, lalai. Yalai, lalai, lalai.
And we continue now with the lighting of our Shabbat candles, and on this eve of the B'nai Mitzvah of Hannah Suchin and Adam Broyles, we invite the following people to lead us in the lighting and blessing as we turn in our Siddur to page 121. We invite Melissa Broyles, Erica Loney, Suzanne Roth, and Jordan Broyles, and we invite Becky, Claire, and Hannah Suchin to lead us in our lighting of the Shabbat candles.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Tivanu, Lahadlik Ner, Shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. Hannah, you want to stay? You want to get your book? As we turn now to page 123, we invite our B'nai Mitzvah, Hannah and Adam, to come and lead us in Kiddush. Here, you can both stand here.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu Zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit Ki hu yom tehillah u'mikraya kodesh Zeher l'siyat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'acharta V'etanu kidashta Mikol ha'amim V'shabbat kodeshecha Be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim.
As we turn now, welcoming Shabbat on page 138, we sing verses 1 and 9 of Lecha Dodi. It's our custom when we reach verse 9 to stand up and turn the entrance of our sanctuary metaphorically, welcoming in Shabbat.
לקראת דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לה 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 לקראת דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד, שמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתחילה, לה 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 לך דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת פעלה, גם בשמחו וסולה, תוך עבודי המסכולה, בואי כלה, לקראת דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת דודי, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
And while we're standing and we've taken a moment to greet Shabbat, we turn to somebody and greet one another Shabbat Shalom. Perhaps not the person next to us. if we already know that person, but maybe somebody in front of us, behind us, across the way, and greet one another. Shabbat Shalom. And we turn now to page 146, and continue with words of Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
On page 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, my sibling, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, my sibling, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. On page 151. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
May be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אלוקים מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך ובדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם נאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We continue on page 157. We read responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
Ni kamocha ba'elim Adonai, ni kamocha nedar b'kodesh, norati lo dosei feleh, norati lo dosei feleh. Malichuti karo uvanecha, uki ayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam, ze'elianu ve'amru, ze'elianu ve'amru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed.
We turn now to page 160, for our next prayer, which is known as Hashkivenu. And if we look at the last two lines of the page, it says, Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu, which means, blessed are you, Eternal One, who has spread over us a sukkah of peace. And also, if we look at the top of the prayer, the third line down, it says, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. That was our opening song, who spreads over us a sukkah of your peace. This prayer is recited only at night. So it's a daily and Shabbat prayer, and for festivals and high holidays, only recited at night. Why is that? It is our prayer where we're asking God to protect us as we lay down at night. That's what Hashkivenu means, as we are lying down, or God who's causing us to lie down. And in the sequence of where we are in the service, this is our second prayer after the Shema, and it originated, or parts of it originated from the Talmud. And if you can think of the Talmud was created in Babylonia, and it got put together around 500. So back then, there were no cell phones, there was no electricity, though certainly fire, and one could read by candlelight, maybe even lanterns or torches. Nights were especially scary. Without those modern conveniences that, look, we're here at night and it's dark outside, but we have all this light, and we can see one another, and we can see what we're reading. And if you think about people who might have lived in sparsely populated areas, there could have been, rural roads and maybe animals that come out at night. And they didn't have the security cameras capturing all these animals, so they knew which ones were coming around at night. Criminals could come out, bandits at night, who might be thieves to take things, and it could be a pretty scary time. So people would offer this blessing, inviting God to protect them as they would sleep at night. And so we see that God spread over this sukkah. So we think about Sukkot and the sukkah being a temporary shelter. We're asking God to shelter us at night. So not just the noun, but also the verb, God shelter us. And during the holiday of Sukkot, we talk about the mitzvot. One of them is to dwell in the sukkah. And what does it mean to dwell in the sukkah? Some people say, well, that means eating your meals. And other people said, well, that means sleeping in the sukkah. I'm just curious, has anyone in this room ever slept overnight in a sukkah? So I want to congratulate you on being very brave, because it's not something that, and I could go camping, but when I'm camping, I know that my shelter is fully enclosed. I would be too scared about the animals coming out at night or through wherever they could get their way in. And so it's the perfect It's the perfect prayer at night. We appreciate this nighttime prayer. And if, by the way, you are looking for something to incorporate into your own ritual as you go to bed at night, this would be a perfect prayer to read. As together we join on page 60, asking for God's blessing during the nighttime. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
So we're going to do a little back and forth. I'm going to teach you a couple of words, and you're going to sing them back. Are we ready? Are we ready?
Ready.
All right, we're ready. Baruch atah,
Baruch atah,
atah Adonai,
atah Adonai,
haporei sukat shalom, haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu. Shalom aleinu.
Shalom aleinu,
Ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
Let's try it together. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
We continue on page 162.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. La'asot et ha-Shabbat l'torotam berit olam. La'asot et ha-Shabbat l'torotam berit olam. Vishamru, Vishamru, b'nei Yisrael, et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. Vishamru, b'nei Yisrael, et ha-Shabbat Shabbat. B'nei uvein Yisrael, oti le'olam. B'nei uvein, b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Vishamru, Vishamru, b'nei Yisrael.
בששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת שבת.
We turn now to page 164. As we're able, we rise for the tefillah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaNorah, Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imot, U'mevii Geulah Livnei Bneiam, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezras Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mekayeh HaKol atah Rav Le'Hoshia, Morid atah, Mekalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mekayeh HaKol B'Rakamim Rabim, Zomik Noflim V'Rofei Kolim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato L'Shinei Afar, Mikamo Kabal Gevurot, U'Midam Melach, Melech Meimit U'Mekayem, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, Bnei Manat Halachayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekayeh HaKol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kedoshim b'kol yom yalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
May be seated. We continue on page 172. You set aside the seventh day for your name, the pinnacle of creation, and you blessed it above all other days, more sacred than all festival times. So it is written in your Torah, the heaven and the earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day, God had completed the work that had been done, ceasing then on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, and ceased from all the creative work that God had chosen to do. Together, our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai our God, grant us as our heritage your holy Shabbat, that Israel, who sanctifies your name, may rest on it. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We turn now to page 174 and look at this next prayer. You'll notice in the middle of the page in the smaller letters are usually an addition on special occasions. Well, tonight is one of those special occasions. And it says, Rosh Chodesh, which is the first day of a new month, the Hebrew month that is, Pesach, which is Passover, and Sukkot, which is our holiday now, in which we dwell in booths. This prayer, in which this addition is embedded, is referred to as the avodah prayer. And when we hear the word avodah, it can be any number of meanings translated to work or worship or servitude or service. And according to the rabbis of the Talmud, the avodah prayer was said by the Kohanim, the priests in the temple. And they said it just after they had offered sacrifices. And we're not sure exactly what the original words were. And we don't offer sacrifices anymore. Instead, we offer words of prayer. So after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, there were still words that were preserved, even though the sacrifices had disappeared. And these words were words we could offer to bring us closer to God. We sometimes call this particular prayer ritzeh by its first word in the prayer. And when we recite ritzeh on Shabbat and Passover and Rosh Chodesh, we add this paragraph here. And we're not only drawing close to God, but we're asking God to be extra mindful of us, bringing us grace, compassion, goodness, blessing, life, and peace. And so we continue with this prayer on page 174, adding this prayer in the middle. Find favor, Adonai, our God, with your people Israel, and accept their prayer in love. May the worship of your people Israel always be acceptable. God, who is near to all who call, turn lovingly to your servants. Pour out your Spirit upon us. Our God and God of our fathers and mothers, on this day of Sukkot, be mindful of us and all your people Israel, for good, for love, for compassion, life, and peace. Remember us for well-being, amen. Visit us with blessing, amen. Help us to a fuller life, amen. Let our eyes behold your loving return to Zion. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose presence returns to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai, hamachazir shechinato litzion.
Ritzi Adonai Eloheinu B'Amcha Yisrael U'tefilatam be'ava tikabel U'tilirasot tamid U'tilirasot tamid Avodat Israel Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, she'odka levarka be'ir anamor. Baruch atah Adonai, she'odka levarka be'ir anamor.
On page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasih
We continue our prayer now silently, whether we are led by the words and the pages of our Siddur through page 181, or other prayers throughout the prayer book, or by those meditations and thoughts in our hearts.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you.
Let me hear you.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do we do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They learn so much more than I will ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
We turn now to page 364, for Seder Kriyat Torah, for our reading of Torah on this prayer study Shabbat. And I would like to invite Adam and Hannah to come up to the bima to help me open the ark. And then I'll have you help me a little bit after the reading as well. So we, as a congregation, we rise.
Mitzion,
This is a non-speaking ark.
Lekadonai,
Our Torah portion for this Shabbat is called Chol HaMoed Sukkot, so it is in a special place. We pull verses from Exodus chapter 34, and I'm going to be reading from verse 21 and following. If you would like to follow along, it's in the larger books. If you're in the front row, I think you might have the books under your seat. If you're in the second row and back, it's in the front of you, in that the slot in front of you. And page 660. And as I'm reading these, verses, I would ask a question. How do we know that in these verses we're talking about Sukkot? So I'll read it for you in Hebrew and then translate, and then we can talk about that a little bit. So if you would like to follow along with the blessing is on page 368. Page 368. I would invite, for those who are able, we rise as together as a community, we recite the Aliyah. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Sheshet yamim ta'avod uvayom hashvi'i tishbot becharish uvakatsir. Teshvot v'chag shavuot ta'aseh lecha bikurei katsir chitim v'chag ha'asif tukufa hashana shalosh pa'amim b'shana yir'eh kol zichurcha et Pnei Ha'adon, Adonai Elohei Yisrael. Ki orish goyim mipanecha vehirchavti et gevulcha velo yachmod ish et artzecha behalotecha lirot et Pnei Adonai Elohecha. Shalosh pa'amim b'shana. Lo Tishchat al chametz dam zivchi velo yalin lavoker zevach chag hapasach. Reshit bikurei admatacha tavi beit Adonai Elohecha lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo. Blessing after. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. May be seated. "6 days you shall work, but on the seventh day you shall cease from your labor. You shall cease from labor even at plowing time and harvest time. You shall observe the Feast of Weeks of the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times a year all your males shall appear before the sovereign, eternal, the God of Israel. I will drive out nations from your path and enlarge your territory. No one will covet your land when you go up to appear before your eternal God 3 times a year. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened, and the sacrifice of the Feast of Passover shall not be left lying until morning. The choice first fruits of your soil you shall bring to the house of your eternal God. You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk." So, how might Sukkot be How do we know that these verses were chosen especially for Sukkot? And this is the place where the congregation can participate. And if you're watching us through the blessing of technology and think you might have an idea, feel free to add that into the chat. You can turn to your neighbor and say, I think it's this. Bob. So, for those of you who couldn't hear, we're mentioning the three festivals, and those three festivals are Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, and this is the last of the three, right? If technically, even though we just celebrated Rosh Hashanah, which we call the head of the year, Pesach, it comes in the first month. Rosh Hashanah is actually celebrated in the seventh month. It's a little strange for us to hear it that way, but there were three holidays mentioned, and there was no word Sukkot that you heard, either in the Hebrew or the English. But the way they describe, and if you listen carefully, you did hear Shavuot, which is Shavuos, or Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. There was something called Chag HaAsif, the festival or the Feast of Ingathering. And it said it falls at Tekufat Hashanah, the turn of the year, right? That's now. We just celebrated Rosh Hashanah. We turned toward a new year, even though we celebrate Rosh Hashanah in the seventh month, on the first day of the month. We celebrate Sukkot on the 15th of the turn of the month, the 15th of the seventh month. So that is correct. And only if we know some of these other names of Sukkot do we understand that Chag HaAsif, that festival of ingathering, and what is it that we might be gathering in? Well, that we are bringing in. It's the end of the harvest. If we look in the Torah, the way we observed our holidays all comes before the temple was built. So these three festivals are all harvest festivals. There's not what we call shalosh regalim, these three pilgrimage festivals, where the people were taking a pilgrimage to the temple in Jerusalem. They were only holding feasts on these harvest festivals where they had the beginning of spring, Pesach, harvest, the end of spring, or the late spring, the Shavuot, harvest, and that festival. And then at the end of the summer, where they're just bringing in all the end of the season harvest, and that was a festival as well. It's only later that we have this offering to the temple. Although it does say 3 times a year shall your males appear before the eternal God, and we're celebrating those with offerings, right? Because even though the temple is not built yet and we're not offering that sacrifice to the temple, we are giving offerings of our harvest to God. And then when we look into other places in the Torah, we see that Sukkot, and the word Sukkot is in the Torah, though Jerusalem is not. Sukkot is on the 15th day of the 7th month, and we are supposed to do 2 things. There's 2 mitzvot. One is to dwell in Sukkot, and the other mitzvah is to take up the lulav, which we're going to do after we read Torah. And those have great symbolism. In our modern world, Sukkot takes us out of the house, and it has us dwell, however we dwell, in a temporary shelter, reminding us that God protected us when we were in the wilderness. And then we take this lulav and etrog together, shaking it in all directions of the compass and up and down to help remind us that God is everywhere. So now we rise as we lift and dress Torah. I'm going to ask Hannah and Adam to come again to the bima. So Once I get this, I don't have one hand here and the other here. Okay, lift it up and come toward me. And now let's lift it this way.
Bezot Torah, Asher Samosha, Livnei Bnei Israel al pi Adonai, biyad Moshe. Eilech Amdalibi, Kusana Viana Titale.
May be seated. We turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are in need of healing, and so we turn to the middle of page 371. Oh, sorry, we're not going to be doing that prayer. We're going to be doing the prayer that's on the Shabbat card. Different, they don't have it today.
Maybe we should do 371 because I don't see the cards.
I don't either. Okay.
371 it is.
371 it is. Okay. And I share with you tonight the names of those people in our extended Adith Emmanuel community who are in need of healing, whether it's a healing of body or a healing of spirit. And if you're watching us through the blessing of technology and you're thinking of those in your life who are in need of healing, feel free to add their names to our chat. And after I read the names on the list, for those of you here in the sanctuary, if you'd like to add others, please feel free to do so. We're thinking and sending out our prayers especially to Allison O'Malley, Karen Hyman, Deanna Amarella, Carl Tarashi, Lisa Goldstein, Brian Zabel, Robin Schaefer, Ed Crosby, Yehudit Bat Avraham Vasara, Jonathan Burr, Myra Kaplan, Sarah Drasnin, Ron Fisher, Jeff Schaefer, Lulu Rivuela, Marion Gwertz, Aaron Tepper, Lily Tepper, Joan Major, Karen Bowen, Louis Alahut, Mary Parker, Barbara Cohen, Tricia Tepper, Jordan Maverick Steinberg, Carol Schaefer, Dr. Jerry Herman, Todd Pollard, Mary Mednitsky, Jocelyn Jackson, Jen Jones, Shirley Friedlander, Michael Infanti, Gary Garnick, Nick Baud, Ann Marsden, Rick Ulrich, Ileana Cohen, and others whose names we should add at this time. Please feel free to rise, and as my hand passes through the congregation, you can mention their name aloud. David Salzer, Baruch atah Adonai, rofei hacholim.
Mikor may the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We turn now to page 374. As we are able, we rise as we return the Torah to the ark. May be seated. And since it is Sukkot, we have an extra bonus blessing tonight as we turn to page 571. Page 571. As I mentioned earlier, we shake the lulav in 6 directions, reminding us that God is everyone. And if you have the 1-volume version, like the real thick one, you will find that 571 says Netilat Lulav. And if you have the thin version that has the pages in the brackets, you will find it's not there. And I'm not sure why, but when we were preparing, I said, note to self, make sure you bring the 1-volume version. So if you don't have it in your Siddur, that's okay. Please listen along, and we say this blessing that ends Al Netilat Lulav. Deliver and bless your very own people, tend them and sustain them forever. Rejoice in your festival, and you shall have nothing but joy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat lulav. I like to smell the etrog in the end. Oh, it's sweet. Can you smell it? How about now? Thanks for laughing. We turn to page 586 at the bottom of the page. As we're able, we rise for Aleinu.